Hello and welcome to the Scoutcast. My name is Joe.
My name is Ted.
And my name's Chris.
Welcome everyone. Welcome back, Ted, and welcome back, Chris. I think you've been on the Scoutcast many years ago.
Maybe.
Maybe. I think you were back in the days
I
with Mark.
think it's not my first time actually. I've been on casts, but not the Scoutcast. I'm quite nervous.
And to introduce you both, so Ted is obviously Ted Talks FPL, wonderful graphics, and we have those coming up soon. And Chris, he runs Fantasy Football Scout. So there you go. We've got the big guns in today. Ted, what is coming up in the show?
Well, I'm very glad you asked, Joe. There is a double game week announcement which was given to us today. Caught us all by surprise, but we'll look into detail on that and see how that impacts our strategy for the run-in. We're also going to look ahead to game week 30 and the best 1 week punts available for wildcarders and those just looking to mix it up a bit. Then I'll reveal some of my graphs. I've done a couple recently, focusing on those teams that love a big chance and the teams that like to concede as well, so attack and defence. And then we'll recap on the next 4 weeks' fixtures, pick a differential, and reveal our transfer and captaincy plans for the week ahead. But first up, it's our game week 29 scores.
Okay.
And Joe, do you want to kick us off?
Yes. So, I'd say I'm top here, but we all did pretty similarly. It's one of those weeks really. So if we can cast our mind back, so it was a blank game week. Some people got Trossard in and captain him, or Lingard, and some people didn't. So here's me. I got 54 points. Didn't use any hits. Ended up with 8 players, and just for the benefit of those listening to the podcast, I had Dallas, Conser, Sufal, Dunk, Lingard, Rafina, Son, who didn't play, Kane and Bamford. Basically they're my lot. Kane captaincy, nice and boring. Got Lingard in, lovely return. Rafina returned, Bamford returned, Dunk returned, got Dunk in as well. A bit meh really. The average though was 25, so I'm quite happy with that. I had a green arrow. I almost on the cusp of the top 300k, so onwards and upwards. Now Chris, you're next up. 50 points.
Hello. Yes.
Yes. So just tell us a bit about your game week. I'll just have a look here. You've got Martinez, Dallas, Sufal, Target, Lingard, Rafina, Bamford, Watkins, Kane captained. No hits either. So how do you feel that went?
I spent weeks kind of building towards it, like a lot of people had, and I was quite happy. Obviously the end of that the previous week, and then obviously injury strike took Son out. There was rumours Bamford was out. So I spent a bit of time thinking about where I should take hits. I was watching all this Brighton shenanigans going on, and I couldn't get excited about buying Brighton defenders. No offence to Brighton fans, but I just thought I don't want them in my side really. And I surely Newcastle in a 6-pointer can't be this bad. Surely this game they're going to raise themselves, but obviously no. I was. No. Many that picked Veltman and Duncan and elsewhere, and Trossard, of course. I know as captained Trossard.
Yes, he did.
A few others did. That was great. But so my big move was Lingard. I had initially the captaincy on him, the armband on him initially, but for 2 reasons I changed it. One, because the Kane expected ownership was so high. I was just like, if I don't go with Kane and he bangs, it's going to be bad. And secondly, it's Lingard. Like already, I was feeling what has gone on with the world. I brought in Jesse Lingard, and secondly, I can't captaincy. This is madness. But clearly, I should have stuck with that because it would have been a bit better off if I had. I wasn't. Didn't take a hit. I would have been better off if I'd taken a hit for the right Brighton player, obviously. But I don't think I'd going back if I had that choice. Sort of, I'd change again. It's a shame Son couldn't play, obviously. I think,
very, very similar thinking to my team, and I ended up getting Duncan at the last minute, sort of thing. I thought I just felt there would be a clean sheet there, but I couldn't quite go the Trossard route. That was just a bridge too far for me. I
couldn't go full Trossard.
No, I couldn't go full Trossard on it. I couldn't. But as a Brighton fan, I just didn't mind. I thought it was great. So that was fine. Ted, let's move on to your team now. Okay, brace yourselves, everyone. This is a good one. Okay, he's got 61 points. That sounds amazing. Until you took 16 points worth of hits. Now, I haven't seen this for ages. I remember the famed Villaronca, who's always at the top of our Hall of Fame, took a 12-point hit once, which worked out. But you've taken a 16-point one. It's actually worked out okay for you. So just for the benefit of those listening to the podcast, you've got Areola, White and Veltman in a fabulous Brighton double up, Conser, Reguilon, Lingard, Bale and Rafinha, Antonio and Maja and Kane, who was your captain. So, key question: why? I mean, who? Yeah, 16 points. How? Why? What? When? All the W's.
Yeah, it's a really interesting one. I did have really sort of lots of hits in the mind before doing it, but I had a few drinks on that Friday night, and it sort of just that's not the main reason for doing it. Let's just caveat that immediately. But it just sort of tipped me over to the edge to say, right, I'm just going to do this, because I do subscribe to the fact that a hit in a double, sorry, in a blank game week is a -2 when you account for the 2 appearance points. There are more reasons than that, I think. I think loading up on the Brighton defence is quite good for the fact that you're covering not just game week 29, but game week 33 as well, where there's another blank game week. And they play Sheffield United, which is a really good chance of a double clean sheet. So those guys can just be on the bench for the meantime. They've got a tricky run of fixtures in the next 3. Happy to bench them for the meantime. And get Fernando, Shaw and De Bruyne back off from the bench. But yeah, so that the hits I took, it sounds crazy at -16, were Lingard, Bale, Maja, Reguilon and Veltman came in for Cancelo, Gundogan, Son, Diagne, and God, I mean, there's so many I've forgotten who I've transferred in and out. But yeah, it actually gave me a positive. It gave me a net increase in score. If I hadn't done the moves, I would have been worse off. So I'm quite happy. Obviously, the 2 main players that paid off were Veltman and Lingard. Yeah. Those are the 2 great ones. And Reguilon was really frustrating because he was 4 minutes away. 4 minutes, Joe, from clean sheet points. Very, very frustrating. And Bale was annoying as well. He got completely left out. So Reguilon, Bale and Maja, pretty annoying, and then they were bad moves on the whole, but the hit worked out. And it's an interesting thing. I'm going to come to this.
Okay.
I'm I would describe myself as quite a conservative player most of the time. So, for example, in the first 20 game weeks of the season, I took about 4 points hits, and in the last 10 game weeks, I've taken 10. I've taken 10 hits in the last 10, and that is just an experiment as to try and go for it a bit more during the chip strategy part of the season. And I just found it quite interesting that in the first 20 game weeks, I went from a bad rank in game week 1 all the way down to 100k or something like that in game week 20. And since then, I've tried to be really, really aggressive, trying to bring in, I tripled up on Everton before their couple really good fixtures. Didn't work out. Captain Diagne ahead of Crystal Palace, who had conceded the most headed attempts, didn't work out. If you make aggressive moves in FPL, like I've done over the last 10 weeks, it can really work out for you, or it can kind of not, and just really sort of suck the soul out of your season, which it kind of has done a little bit for me because my rank has been so static over the last 10 game weeks. So either, like you, Joe, you're really, really patient and just grind away at the season, and you just grind away at that rank, or you can be really aggressive and go for it, and you might succeed, but probably it's going to even out over the time.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of love in the live chat going on at the moment about this. Matthew Kent said, at least Ted attacked the game week. Well done. Yeah, I think a lot of people will respect that. But also, the other thing I like about this is because you've inadvertently planned quite well for an impending double game week, and also for an impending blank because you've stocked up a bit on Brighton. But let's move on to that. So we had an announcement today for Spurs. and it's very, very important. So I've got some stats up on the screen as we chat, which is the last 4 matches, which shows I've sorted it by big chances from the Fantasy Football Scout members area there. So literally the second I was about to send Chris and Ted the notes for tonight's show, the Premier League announced double game week, so which is brilliant. So I had to, so there was a section, I've removed that, and that's going to be discussed next week. There we go. And so in comes game week 32 news. Palace blank. That's the big news. No, that's not really. That is part of it, but that's not the main news. Spurs play Everton and Southampton, a double game week. Whoop-de-doo. So Spurs assets look absolutely key in that game week. Kane looks absolutely key, especially if you've still got your triple captaincy chip left. And also, it's a hugely favourable fixture for a whole bunch of teams. So get this, Arsenal play Fulham, Liverpool play Leeds, Manchester United play Burnley, West Ham against Newcastle, Wolves against Sheffield United, and Leicester play West Brom. It's a fantastic set of fixtures, and a Spurs double really crowns it off, really. So the question to both of you, and we'll come to Chris first on this one, what is the plan to deal with it? And it may be to do with whether you've got a wild card left, a free hit, bench boost, triple captain. Chris, how are you attacking the Spurs?
I do have a
double?
wild card left. There's the one thing I have got left. I have frittered away every other chip given to me with some absolute terrible decisions. I think I got like 4 points for my triple captain and 5 points for my bench boost. So I have really let myself down with that. But I have held on to it a wild card. So I'm current plans to wild card in 31.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm sort of I'm flexible on that. I don't have to. I could probably have a decent team out in 31 and kind of hold a 32 to see what it's to sort of lean in more into this. I think obviously Spurs. It's important to have 3. I've already got Son and Kane. Hopefully Son will be back fit sooner or later. And I'll look around the rest of the line. My problem with Spurs is who else do you go for? I've toyed with both Reguilon and Bale. I don't know if that Reguilon's the right pronunciation. Sorry.
Oh, that's the popular pasta dish, Reguilon.
Yeah, I like my Reguilons temperature. But no, he was. I just the problem that whenever I looked at him before, then I kind of looked at his record and thought, hang on, he's not guaranteed to even play, and he might get hoiked off, and the Spurs defence is a bit crap, so I can never get very excited about him. Bale obviously looked great, and then look not so great, so we'll see. But I see most likely. But yeah, I think I'll come in with 3 Spurs. But I'm for that. That said, I mean, Southampton, that should be a good fixture for them. Everton, you just never know. We had an incredible game. I'm an Everton fan, so we beat Spurs at the start of the season. We had an incredible game in the FA Cup, which was ended up 5-4, I think, and that was just mental. So that would be great for everyone. But I don't think either of those are necessarily walkovers either, because Southampton are going to have to buck up a bit. I'm quite excited about West Ham against Newcastle. In that, I've kind of keep thinking Newcastle can't get any worse. They don't seem to be able to. They do get worse, and I think West Ham look very, very tasty at the moment. There's a lot of good options there. I've already got Lingard and Soufal, but having Antonio or Souček in for that will be essential, I think. And then beyond that, I'm also kind of toying with a bit of Leicester. I've not, apart from Justin, I hadn't had much Leicester this season, but Iheanacho, my goodness, he looks like a chap in form, doesn't he? So yeah, I don't know. I think probably I'll make the decision on 32 at the start of just coming into the end of 31, but I decide to, or middle of 31, but I decide to wildcard or not. But
so you could wildcard in. So because this is a lot of our viewers and listeners may just have the wildcard left, and they'll be looking at this and thinking, well, I was going to wildcard in game week 31. There's a big fixture swing, and lots of the players and teams you just mentioned. But if you haven't got another chip, a triple captaincy, a free hit, bench boost, you could wildcard in 32. You could just wildcard straight into this.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking at the moment. That's definitely an option. I mean, there's some good things. I mean, you mentioned Liverpool Leeds as a favourable fixture. I don't really know who that's favourable for at the moment, to be honest.
Well, attackers. Not defenders. I see lots of goals in that, in my crystal ball. I see lots of goals, not just because of their last game, just because they're both quite attacking teams. And Liverpool are an elite team. I can't believe they're going to be rubbish for the rest of the season. Maybe they will, but anyway, Leeds are attacking. They don't have a break. They just go for it, which is quite good. So now, Ted, you're in a different position. You have no chips left. So how are you going to tackle the Spurs double game week?
Yeah, I've spent all my chips. I think I did them in pretty normal positions. Game week 18 and 19 was the free hit and triple captain, and game week 25 was the wild card 26 bench boost. So fairly traditional sort of stuff. But I'm pretty envious of you guys of having your wild cards. That would be quite useful in the upcoming fixtures. So I sort of lucked out a little bit because I sort of went for the game week 29 and tripled Spurs, and now that's looking quite favourable. But it is a lucky move. I didn't plan it one bit, and I would be lying if I did said otherwise. The issue I have is Gareth Bale. What to do with Gareth Bale? Because the comments that have come out in the news about, well, firstly, he was saying he's not going to continue at Spurs. He's going to go back to Real Madrid at the end of the season. So there's clearly not longevity there. And Mourinho doesn't seem to have... he seems to have a bit of a problem with him in terms of attitude. He's taken him off early. And Bale's come out and said, I want to play as many minutes as possible, but we have to talk to Mourinho about it. So I would really like to keep Bale, and I probably will keep him for Newcastle because I think he can haul there. And if he doesn't, then I'm just going to have to suffer that and have Madger off the bench. And if he doesn't play for some reason, then there's clearly an inherent problem, and I'm going to have to get rid for someone like that. So I'm quite happy having triple Spurs, but the other games, as you say, Joe, are really attractive as well. Arsenal, Fulham. It's really interesting that Arsenal are they're such a...
Are you about to swear there?
No. I'm trying to find a really clever word to describe Arsenal, but clearly not intelligent enough to come up with one. But yeah, they're like a crazy team that have so much possession and are really imposing themselves on games, but not really getting the results. And it's a crazy game against Spurs, and a crazy game against West Ham. And yeah, Arsenal, Fulham. Like, I'm not going to say that Arsenal are going to come away with that. Fulham are in decent form, but I really like Tierney from Arsenal. I think he loves to cross that ball in, and he's one of the best attacking stats for the defenders per 90 over the season. He really could get some minutes, and Arsenal have great fixtures until the end of the season. From what you were saying, Chris, with West Ham Newcastle, there's clearly problems in the dressing room at Newcastle, isn't there? There's a section the dressing room who want maybe a bit of change because clearly they're not getting the results that they want at the moment. And most of us maybe have Lingard or Antonio and decent players for that fixture for sure. The interesting one, as you said, is Leicester, and Iheanacho is on good form, but I think Sheffield United did sort of flatter Leicester a little bit. They're really, really poor at the moment, and without Maddison and Harvey Barnes, I don't know when they're going to come back actually. On paper, they don't seem as good a team, but clearly winning 5-0 at Sheffield United has got to raise some heads. And Vardy was great, Iheanacho was great. They're like top. It was such a good match for them in terms of the stats. Iheanacho and Vardy have just come from the bottom rung and just flung themselves onto the top shelf. And clearly people have to consider them because of that performance. But I'm just going to wait and see what that Leicester team looks like before jumping on the bandwagon.
Okay, so just before I explain what I'm going to do, and I think I'm fairly set on what I'm going to do, but not sure. Just the stats we got up on the screen there. So for big chances, Kane is clearly the man to have. Created 4 big chances. Normal chances created 4. Had 8 shots inside the box, 6 on target. This is good, prime Kane stuff. Bale is next with 3 big chances. Created 5. Chances there, shots inside the box 5, 4 on target, but can he do all that if he's not on the pitch? No, obviously not. So it's whether he plays or not is the big issue. Carlos Vinicius came in, but that was largely due to Son's absence. A couple of big chances, but Son there is interesting. Only 1 big chance, but, and I know Ted, a bit later you're going to talk about big chances and small chances, but he's created 10 chances there. 3 shots inside the box, 2 on target. Interestingly, the Newcastle game could be a good matchup for him if he is playing on the left, because Newcastle from my memory of the captaincy video and podcast we did earlier today, it is on their right hand side. They are the worst, I believe. I know they and West Brom are the worst teams on their right hand side. So whoever is attacking them from the left will prosper. So that could be Son. Maybe. So lots of ifs and buts.
Is he definitely back from injury now, Son?
Well, you would imagine so. Even when he wasn't back from injury, he became back from injury last time. So we can just hope. It looks like this was potentially internationalitis. If he had been fit, he would be off travelling the world with the rest of the South Korean team at the moment. So I would imagine he's back. But we'll know on Newcastle as well, ahead of the double. But what I'm going to do is, I've got two options. Do absolutely nothing, because I've got Kane and Son. But I'm not going to do that. I'm still going to wildcard in 31. I've just read out all of those fixtures. I want to be tapping into them. I want to be looking at Vardy, Iheanacho, Arsenal players. Wolves as well are interesting. West Ham, I have a bit of West Ham at the moment, but do I have the right one? There's lots of changes I'd quite like to make, and I also have a bench boost. And those listening to the podcast or watching recent weeks will know I absolutely hate the bench boost, because it messes with your mind. It's like a poltergeist in your head, and it alters all of your decisions. And so I always think with the bench boost, the best thing to do is use it in conjunction with a wild card and then forget about it. So I am going to wildcard in 31, and 32 I'm going to hopefully have a great bunch of players, plus I'm going to have the triple Spurs, so I can go into that and attack that, because there's going to be a lot of triple captainers out there for Kane as well. Then the bench boost is gone. I can make all these decisions about not the sub and I need a playing. I don't have to worry about that afterwards, so it'll be like a weight off my mind. What I have been thinking about is Kane and Son. I've already got. And the third Spurs player will probably be Lloris. And Lloris is a really handy little player, because you can only play one goalkeeper. You can match him up with another goalkeeper who has a favourable fixture. So, for example, if you've got low on funds, Brighton's keeper, Sanchez, great backup keeper, plays in 33 when Spurs blank. You can do that as well, or you can mix it up a bit and maybe have Leno. Maybe you can have Martinez as well. Quite interesting, I think. I think there's plenty of options there. So I don't know what either of you think about that. I mean, have you considered a third option? I know you've got Reggie on there, Ted, but Chris or Ted, are you a third Spurs option?
I just want to caveat that maybe those that are put off by Son from that table, rest assured that 6 of those 10 chances created were big chances created. So he's sort of turned provider almost to either Bale or Kane, and just as worthy as big chances total. So he's clearly turned the creator, and Kane's taken over the mantle as goal scorer. So yeah, he's still in the mix, Son for sure.
What about you, Chris?
What do you think?
Reguilon, like you said, I said before, I just don't see him. I'm just not convinced he plays. That's the way. I don't know how. I don't know what goes on in Mourinho's thinking around that back line, but I don't know. He's got makes some odd decisions. I mean, what's happened to Doherty? He was a fantasy favourite that's gone nowhere. So yeah, I don't know. I'd probably go Bale as my third Spurs.
You'd go Kane, Son, and Bale.
Yeah,
really interesting.
I mean, the Lloris is a good shout. I hadn't really thought about that. I'm kind of on that. Talking of keepers, I know this is not the subject, but Martinez is now it's starting to feel like with the Martinez turning point now, right? Where suddenly, obviously Grealish might suddenly be back and it might all turn around, but it's suddenly he's kind of the everyone's favourite, and suddenly it's starting to looks like it can drop away a little bit. So
there is a good rotation with Leno apparently. With so I think Leno has most of the good fixtures, but you're right, Martinez doesn't on the whole seem to have a good run of fixtures. So if you pair him with a goalkeeper, if you want to spend 9-10 million on a goalkeeper duo, then pair him with Leno, and it could be a match made in heaven. But it's
yes, indeed. We'll talk about that when we look at the next 4 fixtures. So that's coming up a bit later in the show. We'll look at the next 4 fixtures, and you can see there this change in the fixtures for Villa. It's quite stark. there. Just before we move on, looking at a lot of people wanted to know about game week 30 punts, because people are maybe wildcarding 31, looking for a 1 week punt, but nevertheless they might just be looking for a player that you can get in to steal a march on the rankings there. But I hastily put together a wildcard team. Now I'm not going to put a picture up here, because as soon as I put a picture up of it, I'm sort of held to it, and then people will say in a week or two's time, yes, but you said you were getting Chowdhury in. But you didn't in the end. So I'm just going to say this is very early draft. So I'm just going to it's benefit the podcast listeners as well. So just reel it off. I'm going to probably go for, if I can afford it, Leno and Lloris in goal, with a view to moving one on at some point. But I can bench boost them. I'm looking at Shaw, Azpilicueta, and Rudiger, because Chelsea's defence is so good, and their fixtures. Cody and possibly Stones as my only City asset, but I'm probably not going to have any City. And then I'm looking at something like Neto, Lingard, Jota, Son and Fernandes, no Salah. And without Salah, it frees you up. I was talking about the bench boost being a weight on your mind. Salah, an even bigger weight on my mind. Once he's removed, it frees you up. And so up front, I could have Iheanacho, Vardy and Kane. And I can do that at the moment, only just. And if I needed to free up some money, I might move something like Stones to someone else who is viable and maybe 0.2 less. So I'm just reading that out as just an example of the kind of wildcard you can look at in 31. Whilst,
do it, Joe.
I could. I am. I'm there. So next week Scoutcast. So I'm plugging next week's Scoutcast here. Those of us wildcarding will reveal. We can have a good chat about those types of players, because I'm sure they'll change. But I do like that, because it means I can attack that double game week of Spurs and still attack the rest of the season, hopefully. Anyway, that's the plan, and a big plug for next week. Game week 30. Now, a lot of people have been asking questions. I've got a picture of Alonso just put up here, the ultimate in 1 week punts. He is the poster boy of 1 week punts, if it was possible to have a poster in your room for that. So game weeks 31 and 32, very likely, as we've discussed, to see a flurry of wildcards being deployed due to swing in the fixtures. Wolves, Chelsea, Liverpool all see a massive upturn in their fortunes, and Spurs have that double as well. And Leeds and Villa, we've got a lot of Leeds and Villa, haven't we? Well, think again. Their fortunes take a dramatic turn for the worst before picking up again a bit later in Leeds' case. So many are thinking of short-term punt for game week 30, but could the options they choose also be profitable for non-wildcarders, so someone you can have for a few weeks? So we've got some community questions on this. Vishnav asks, I don't have a wildcard, but I'm thinking of punting on Alonso. Should I go for the flying wingback or play safe for someone like Azpilicueta or Rudiger? Pep talk for those wildcarding soon. Is it still worth a hit in game week 30 to tap in some favourable matches? For example, Leeds versus Sheffield United and Chelsea versus West Brom. And D-Beck, just as simple, who are the best 1 week punts for those wildcarding? So I've got some stats here before I ask Ted and Chris for their views on this. So I've got some, let's have a look here. Looking at the fixtures here, so this explains a bit more of the fixtures. It's a really, really, really good week. Those are teams here. So you've got Chelsea against West Brom, Leeds against Sheffield United. You have Southampton against Burnley, is not a bad fixture. Spurs playing Newcastle, fantastic. And then Everton against Palace. Now in the captaincy video and podcast we did this morning, there's a great matchup there. Calvert-Lewin's head and Crystal Palace's fear of Calvert-Lewin. Basically, Calvert-Lewin has scored the most headed goals and Crystal Palace have conceded the most headed chances. So yeah, it's a lovely little matchup there. So look at what I've got here. I've got the worst defences up on the screen. So this is the last 4 matches, and Sheffield United are the worst. Big chances conceded 19. Then Burnley, 12 big chances conceded. So that says to me, if you're looking for a 1 week punt, a Leeds player, if you do not already have one, if you do not have a good one like Rafinha or Bamford, get them. For Burnley, possibly if you wanted to take a 1 week punt on a Southampton player, that could be a good option as well. But Chelsea against West Brom. West Brom have conceded 8 big chances, and I think Chelsea are full of lots and lots of interesting prospects there, not least of which is Alonso. So I've got some more stats here, if I put up here. So we've got the picture of Alonso, and I've done expected goal involvement from the Fantasy Football Scout members area. Last 4 matches, all last 4 matches here. Expected goal involvement. And I've basically sorted it by Leeds, Chelsea, and I've thrown in a little bit of Southampton if you fancy Shay Adams as a 1-week punt. So expected goal involvement. Rafinha and Bamford are the guys to get. If you don't have them, get them. They are the ones to get because their fixtures turn. This is a great 1-week punt for them. Sheffield United are in a different league of awfulness. Then it's mainly with the Chelsea players, Werner if he's playing, Havertz if he's the number 9, good options. Alonso, expected goal involvement, expected to have been involved in a goal, created 8 chances, had 6 shots inside the box. He's a defender, mind you, who in a team that gets lots of clean sheets. So you're looking at the potential of a double-digit haul here, and this is why a number of people are considering Alonso. And also Adams there, created 3 big chances, expected goal involvement, expected to be involved in one and a bit goals. So lots of options here. Let's go to you first, Ted. I've had enough of talking about this. Ted, what do you think? Game week 30 punts, whether it's 1 week or a player to keep for a few weeks. Who's your top tips?
The players I'd say I'd fear the most are definitely Bamford and Calvert-Lewin, because I don't own them and they're kind of highly owned. But as you say, Crystal Palace conceded a lot of headed attempts, and if that had helped me when I captained Diagne, because that was the evidence that I was going by. So hopefully Calvert-Lewin can do it for his owners. But I really do fear those two. I think Bamford's probably a captain shout even this week against terrible Sheffield United. So, I think Leeds players are really, really good. I would probably captain Rafinha if I had the guts to do it. If Kane's going to be so heavily captained, across the board. So I'd be kind of mad not to captain Kane, but I think Rafinha is a really good captaincy shout. I really like, the Southampton-Burnley game. I think there's going to be a lot of differentials there. And I like your shout about Shay Adams. Southampton have been really good at converting big chances. We'll come to that later. But I think another really, really left field punt in that game is, and you might sort of ridicule me for saying it, Joe, but Matthias Vydra for Burnley. He started the last 5 and he's had some really decent stats. 5 big chances, 2 big chances created, 12 shots in total and 8 chances created in total, 2 attacking returns. He's 4.8 and he's 0.9% owned. And as you previously stated in your defensive table, Southampton have conceded 10 big chances in the last last four, which is only 2 behind Burnley. So they're really, really poor for defence. So it could be quite a lot of goals in that game. And Vydra, who nobody owns, could be a great 1-week punt, but it may be a bit too much. So we will see, but he's my left field shout for this week, I'd say. Okay,
now I like that, and now in my goals imminent table, which I frequently put up, there's always a name in there where I think, people will just laugh at me. But anyway, Chris Wood's name keeps cropping up there, so I've said it there. So Chris Wood could be an option. Momentarily,
Andy will love you for that.
Yeah, so Chris Wood could be an option there, but Vydra there. Yeah, I think Burnley have gone from being a defensive team to an attacking team. Just want to point out, while people may be looking at the graphics and realising Ted is sort of merged in a bit, it's because Chris has ducked out, possibly for internet reasons, for the moment. So hopefully he'll pop back in. But in the meantime, Ted is in sort of 2 parts at the moment, so just bear with us for that, and then Chris there we go, I quite like it, and then Chris will dive in when he can, so we'll do that. So while Chris is sorting himself out, Ted, you've provided us with a couple of graphs, so let's have a look at these then. So what we've got here is big chances scored. So this is the first one here. So describe what we're seeing. What are we seeing here, and why should we be taking note of it?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. Like normally we just when we're looking at stats, we just look at teams like who are the teams that have the most big chances, and that's surely a good thing. And we pick players from those teams because they're more likely to maybe score. But maybe there's something like inherently wrong with the confidence in a team or whatever. So this graph is just basically saying, looking at how good teams are at converting the easy chances, and that's in the last 6 matches. So you can see Man City up there, top right. They've had the most big chances in the last 6, and they're probably, I think, if not the best at converting them. And they've scored 10 big chances in the last 6. So they're clinical, and they've had the best number of chances, which is crazy because quite a lot of us, including myself, are looking at getting rid of the Man City or have got rid of Man City players. I'm only keeping De Bruyne for reasons. I really fancy him as keeping him in the team, but and going completely without Man City might be a bit risky. But they blank in 33, and the reasons to get rid might not be that bad. So yeah, we've got quite a lot of teams at the top there: the Man City, Leicester, West Ham, Tottenham, Arsenal, Southampton, Everton, and Man United and Crystal Palace, who are better at converting those easy chances, even with a different amount. Big highlight here for me is Liverpool. Down at the bottom, they're middling for number of big chances, and they've been really, really poor at converting them, missing the easy chances, and that really does say a lot about their confidence at the moment. Only one big chance scored in the last 6. Surely that can't continue. Surely Salah and the Mane, Jota, they're going to have to start converting those easy chances, which is, if they do start doing that, then they really have good fixtures until the end of the season. So I think a lot of us will be jumping back on them. Leeds is another one. Leeds are notorious for missing big chances. Bamford, when he was in the Championship, was noted for missing all of these really easy chances and scoring the much more difficult ones. So nothing new there. Really, really, really noteworthy is West Brom. They haven't scored a single big chance in the last 6 matches, which is terrible. So if you're playing a defender against West Brom, you've got a really, really good chance of a clean sheet. The interesting one for me, and we're talking about differentials, is Southampton up at the top there. We've got Shea Adams. I don't know how long Danny Ings is out for. I don't think he's back yet. But certainly if Shea Adams is playing up by himself, Southampton seem to be really good at converting those easy chances. So it could be a good team to target for a 1-week punt in game week 30. Another one, interesting, is Man United haven't had as many big chances as you might have thought. And I thought they would have had as many as Man City. But they're still good at converting them. They're just having significantly less, which is why they've only had 3 scored in the last 6. So if we move on, Joe, to the defensive.
Yeah,
graph.
okay. So if you just bear with me a second. Yeah, where you go.
Yeah, so this is kind of like a graphical form of the table you showed earlier, Joe, of the defensive stats. Big chances conceded up at the top, small chances conceded across the side. So top right is a team that is really, really poor at defending. Sheffield United really, really are enforcing their whipping boy status at the moment. They really, really are. Only 1 clean sheet kept in the last 6, and that is only worsened by Arsenal, who really are setting really a terrible precedent at not being able to keep a clean sheet. And they haven't been able to keep a clean sheet. I think it's in the last 8 games, which is crazy because they're not displaying terribly poor attacking stats. Really interesting ones here. Fulham and West Brom, who were so bad in the first half of the season, have sort of rallied a little bit and have kept 3 clean sheets in their last 6 matches. So they're not the whipping boys in terms defensively as we might have thought they are in the first half. So Fulham and West Brom, clearly Allardyce and Scott Parker have done some good jobs defensively there. Brighton, really good defensively, but they're just underperforming. They've underperformed all season. They did have a stint when Sanchez came in goal, that keeping a really good run of clean sheets, but now they've come back again. Only 2 in the last 6, and those are against sort of easier teams. So it's really surprising to see them so good and not fulfilling their potential as clean sheets. But I really hope they do in game week 33.
Just to go back to, say, for example, Newcastle. So we were talking about Son earlier, and Son, loads and lots of small chances. in the very recent table, and there you see Newcastle there. So that's the sort of matchup I quite like to see. Newcastle conceding a lot of small chances. Sheffield United, interestingly, in a world of their own, they're just off the scale here. Welcome back, Chris. By the way, you've joined us looking at in picture form how rubbish Sheffield United's defence is.
Is that sorry? Well, opportune time. As I was saying before with my 4-hour rants about fixtures. No, sorry about that. Yeah, that was we can thank Virgin for that. So a scheduled interruption. There's a little advertising plug for them they won't appreciate, but I'm perfectly fine for not had an outage for weeks. But there you go. Live TV. Yeah. So sorry, Sheffield United. Yeah, it's. I'm sure I can't add much to the Ted's analysis and data. I mean, they're gone, right? I mean, I think that's they're gone now, and I think sometimes that allows teams to play with some sort of new freedom and pride and what have you. But I sense that's not going to be the case here. No. I think I can't see things turning around really.
They still haven't got a replacement for Wilder, have they? No. Which is interesting because clearly they got rid of him without having a scheduled replacement waiting. So clearly it was a sort of emotional decision. Maybe Wilder took offence at maybe some of the structural impacts that they went through, but clearly it's having a major impact, and whoever they get back into the dressing room as manager will have his work cut out. And as you say, Chris, I think they probably are out this season because they really are struggling. Target them for captaincy and everything else.
Well, it's always great to get sort of what we can see, but in that graphical form of especially the XG champions Brighton there, still on target for their title of the XG League, whichever in my head that they'll get that title. It just proves about Chelsea as well. Big chances conceded, small chances conceded. This is why I'm thinking on my wildcard doubling up temporarily on the Chelsea defence, especially the likes of Azpilicueta and Rudiger, who looked nailed on. Let's have a look at the next 4 fixtures, because this alludes to a lot of the things that we were talking about. So this is game weeks 30 right through to 33. So we haven't got the Spurs double yet, because I put the picture up just before that's been sorted on the season ticker. So what you can do on the season ticker at Fantasy Football Scout, you can sort by difficulty, and it's my favourite thing to do on here. I can just sit there all day just sorting by difficulty, and it's really great because it graphically it just shows you that Wolves, Chelsea, Liverpool, Manchester United and Everton for the next 4 are great, but it also shows you that Man City and Tottenham overall haven't got such great fixtures, but that's mainly because of the blank in 33. And then Fulham. But the interesting ones is the fixture shift here. So you can see in 30, Leeds of Sheffield United. We've just been talking about Sheffield United. But then it gets awful. Game week 31, City. Then they go into Liverpool and then Manchester United. This is awful. This is an awful run. It picks up again towards the end of the campaign. We're going to talk about that next week a bit more when we're sort of planning our wildcard or planning the season running. But then not just Leeds, looking at Villa, I'm just trying to find them on here. Yeah, so they got Fulham next, great, game week 30, brilliant. And then it just goes awful. They got Liverpool and Man City, which is like the worst you could get. They do have West Brom again, so it's not all bad. So those thinking of getting Martinez or perhaps Grealish in, you're not going to be without points totally, but the fixtures don't look great there. So what I find interesting about this particular juncture in the season is that 31 is quite a marked shift for a lot of the players we already have. And we've spoken about the likes of Leicester and Arsenal. They just get really good again. So game week 32, for example, West Brom, Crystal Palace. This is part of a run actually with Leicester. Talk more about it next week. And immediately, these are definitely the teams to target. Chris, has this given you any thoughts about your impending wild cards and the teams or players you might be avoiding or going for?
Yeah, I mean, figuring into some. I missed obviously the previous conversation, but I don't know if you talked about Everton much in.
No,
we didn't. We left that for you.
Not.
Well, I think you should. No, but as an Everton fan, I of many years, I'm a little bit older than probably everyone here, but yeah, I've sort of experienced the frustrations. But I think there are some options there. I mean, DCL is obviously the one that's kind of getting most attention. Interestingly, Sigurdsson, especially with Rodriguez or James Rodriguez, I'd like to say, in and out. Sigurdsson's kind of come into his own a little bit, and he's been kind of quietly picking up points. With Richarlison as well, he's actually been taking the way they slightly changed the forward line, rather than it all being going to DCL. You've got Richarlison up alongside him now. That he's starting to become an option as well. So I think Everton are worth looking at, and I tend to veer away from them as because I know what they're like, but the next couple definitely. Obviously, then it starts, as you say, the fixtures may change a bit, but I can see the team doing well towards the end of the season. This is our our big push. So I think they're worth looking at.
What do you think? Sorry, Joe. I was just going to ask Chris what his thoughts are about. I worry about Everton having the formation, just in general. Yeah, the formation that they go with, or Ancelotti goes with, whether it's two up top or whether it's the three, has such a massive difference in the potential for Richarlison or Calvert-Lewin. Yeah. Calvert-Lewin really suffered when they went Richarlison, Calvert-Lewin up top. And he tended to come short and Richarlison went long, and he was the one who was getting the goals. Well, they changed that around in game week 29, and let alone, Calvert-Lewin started getting a goal, when they switched to that front three. It sort of worries me that Ancelotti can just change the system each game depending on the opponent, and the person that I bring in for FPL just suddenly has a terrible time of it.
Yeah, no, I think that's absolutely fair, and he does do that. He does sort of tinker much more related to the opposition than just play our game and hope around that. And I think sometimes it looks brilliant, and other times you kind of wonder what he's doing. But yeah, no, that's definitely a concern. I think DCL he's in scoring form for England again. I think he's probably the safest bet. But if you're looking for different differentials, I might talk for, I don't know, but I'd or just punts for short term. I think that either the Sigurdsson or the Richarlison or DCL are interesting. You said in terms of other strategy, yeah, I don't know. I'm definitely. I mentioned earlier about Leicester. I'm definitely kind of looking at trying to get some of that in there, whether that's in Iheanacho or going forward or Vardy. I don't know if I'd be brave enough to go both like your earlier wild cards, Joe, but I think that's definitely interesting. And yeah, United, I've only had one or max two assets, and I might be sort of looking back towards them. Chelsea I've not really owned with this season, apart from Zuma in the early days, who did really well for me, and then decided not to be played at all during the double game week. Thanks for that. But yeah, this is very interesting, and the fixture swing, as we all know about, is definitely throwing up a few new ideas. I'm almost thinking about going back to Liverpool. As an Everton fan, it's hard enough to back these assets anyway. But
I think the big question that's going to build up, because we live in a big social media bubble world, and there's the Fantasy Football Scout forum as well, and the pressure starts to mount, and that pressure starts to say, Salah, get Salah, not get Salah. And as I explained earlier, my wildcard plans, if you go without Salah, the possibilities are almost endless. You've got this wonderful amount of cash freed up. Jota is matching Salah when it comes to conversion, if he's playing. But it's dealing with that sort of psychological side of the game and blanking it out. So whilst I'm not going to avoid forums and social media, I'm going to try and, like with a horse with blinkers on, I'm just going to go, no, not listening to Salah's, not listening to you telling me that Salah scored a hat-trick at Bournemouth and all those kinds of things. So yeah, now Ted, your wildcard list, so you don't have the luxury to go, hey, look, Game Week 31, it's all changing. Incidentally, Game Week 35, it all changes again, by the way. But in Game Week 31, all changes. So your plan really is, you really looking at the season ticker, I imagine, because you've got to make transfers work for it.
So with Game Week 32, I think that actually has a massive impact as to the strategy, because before that was announced, I probably would have suggested people wildcard in 31. But actually, with Game Week 33 becomes another fixture swing where Spurs and Man City have a blank, and the likes of Liverpool have a really good run of fixtures. So Another option for wildcarders potentially could be to load up on Spurs for game week 32 and then wildcard in game week 33 and get rid of them all and load up with Liverpool instead, or another team that has a good fixture run. So it's an interesting scenario. You could do that in 31 too, I suppose, but whether or not you go gung-ho on Spurs is another matter. For me, I'm loaded up on Spurs. I have to find a way of getting a couple of them out, maybe for 33. And yeah, there's a few viable options out there, like the Jotters, like the... actually, I really like this season. I think this season is defined by its cheap bargain bucket players, like the Gundogan, the Rafinhas, the Sakas, the Fodens, the Jotters. You could go ahead and get away with having really cheap teams.
Well, I mean, that was the segment of the Scoutcast I chucked away, and I will have again next week, was about the huge wealth of mid-priced midfield options. Lingard, Neto, Gundogan, Jota, Saka. It goes on and on and on. You can't have them all. Rafinha. So it's ways of dealing with all of that. But perhaps you can have all 5 of them and just ignore the premiums. There's certainly merit in it. They've got the fixtures and they've got the form. Round about now, we usually pick a differential. So I'm going to take it this time because I haven't chosen a differential for a while, and it's a nice easy one for me because it is a 1 week punt for me. But I do think he is good for the remaining fixtures. So whilst he has West Brom next at home, he then has Crystal Palace, and then he has Brighton, and then West Ham. I think these are a reasonable bunch of fixtures here. I think he'll get clean sheet points. I think he could get some attacking returns, and I could handle the odd benching here and there. I think he's a good option here. So that's why I picked Alonso. Because he's only in two. It's like a klaxon goes off. He's only in 2.5% of teams.
Yeah, the reason for that, Joe.
He has. Well, you mock young Alonso, but he's expected to be involved. Bear in mind, he's a 5.7 defender, 5.7 million. Expected involved in a goal. He's created 8 chances. This is across only 3 starts. So I'm expecting a benching over the next 4. But he's created 8 chances, had 6 shots inside the box, 4 of those on target. This is he started getting into Kane, Son territory with these underlying stats.
I don't doubt his huge attacking potential. We all know his huge attacking potential, but he's played 1 of the last 4 games. And that says it all, I think. How can you trust that he plays?
He hasn't played over the international break, and Chilwell has. I think he's going to get West Brom. So I think you're immediately going to be off to a flyer with a double-digit haul from an Alonso goal and clean sheet and bonus. And then...
Yeah, but West Brom are really good defensively now.
No, they're not. They're down and out. Sheffield United have set the bar of awfulness, and West Brom are just sort of plain awful. But
you don't listen to my charts now, Joe. I just backed them.
But the I know I've got the narrative in my head. With Alonso though, I think he's especially good for this segment because he's a differential. And a differential is often a low-owned player, and they're low-owned for a reason because they might not start. And so what you're banking on is if they do start, they'll get you points. I would also say that another Chelsea assets would be good, but just looking for those under 5%. So looking down I'll quickly have a look on the FPL website. Looking down, I guess you could go for Werner's way over. Havertz would be the other option. Okay, 2.8.
Ziyech, what about Ziyech?
Ziyech 2.1% teams he's in. So yes, exactly. I'm saying target Chelsea. I think they're good, and I think expect a benching. But
do you reckon Havertz continues to play number 9? Because that really does alter his appeal.
Yeah, I think
he does.
Yeah, I think he still does, and I don't think Werner plays 9. I think Werner plays somewhere off him if he plays at all. Giroud is also another option. I know two shouts all mentioned about Giroud getting more minutes as well. He sort of regrets not using him, so that makes me wonder, because of their Champions League involvement, who he might favour in the league. So that could indicate that Giroud might get a league start and Havertz is safe for Champions League. Which is why, that's why I go for Alonso. And also for me, slightly selfishly, it's a 1 week punt. I'm just going to go for that. And if it doesn't work out, well, he's just gone. But I do think he is good for the next 4. So it's a genuine one there. Much too.
Rudiger is less than 5%, I'd point out.
Oh, is he? Is he? Okay, yeah. Now, I mean,
4.7.
I'm often mocked for my boring differential picks here. I tend to go for... and basically...
Alonso's a brave pick, I'll give you that.
Azpilicueta and Rudiger would be normally my sort of pick, but I just thought I'd flare it up a bit. Just for today. A little special occasion. Flare it up with a bit of Alonso.
No, it's good. I missed it earlier. Did you have the Aspi love? Did we get some Azpilicueta love when I was struggling with the
yeah. I mean, he's on my sort of back of a fag packet wildcard team. Azpilicueta is in there. If I can afford him, I want Azpilicueta. I think because he can get the bonus, and those close to him call him Dave. After Rodney and Only Fools and Horses, which is good enough reason for me.
Do that now. Everyone's got the Brazilian name. It can just be Dave. It's
just don't get more Brazilian than Dave. Let's move on to our team reveal. So let's get me. Now I've got a few benching headaches, which other people might have as well. So this is me for Game Week 30. I've got Edison and currently Stones, Konsa and Dallas, and I've got Rafinha, Fernandez, Lingard, Son, Calvert-Lewin, Kane and Bamford. And I'm very happy with all of them. But then I've got Gundogan on my bench, Kufau and Dunk, who's probably going to become Alonso. And then I'm going to put Alonso in instead of John Stones. So my bench is going to be Gundogan and Stones and Kufau, or Sufau. And then I'm going to wildcard the hell out of it, run away from it. Kane is, I just don't feel, there's nothing about this week that says don't captain Kane. I think Kane's going to do well. He almost got a massive haul against Newcastle last time. I think Son will help him. I think their vulnerability down that flank will help him. I've got the vice captaincy on Fernandez just because Fernandez is just the guy you trust any week, no matter against who. But I think I would probably change my vice captain to Rafinha because I do really like Leeds against Sheffield United. I think this is the week to target them. So yeah, that's me. I'm going to do 1 week punt, Dunk out for Alonso.
It's a good team, Joe. I think you've got all the fear players, the players that could haul.
Yes.
If you don't necessarily captain, it doesn't
I'm
matter.
certainly scared of them. Ted, you have Martinez, Shaw, who's on my potential wildcard, Konsa, Reguilon, Fernandez, Lingard, Bale, Rafinha, De Bruyne, Antonio, Kane captain, and then on your bench you've got Madger, Veltman and White, Areola. So you've got a better bench, as in you've got an easier decision to make there. So yeah, what decisions have you got coming up? And I guess Bale stays and.
Yeah, that's the only real decision, I think. I'm definitely planning to just roll the transfer this week because they, on paper, have pretty good fixtures, that team. Pretty happy with it. I think the West Ham Wolves game is a bit underrated. I think West Ham probably going to do a number on Wolves. And I don't think Wolves are going to have much joy, which makes me think you should play Kufal, Joe. Yeah, I think West Ham are really, really impressing this season. I think particularly defensively.
As impressive as Alonso?
Really? Definitely not. Let me just roll my eyes like as much as I can.
Will that be
off the bench anyway? So that's the way.
Will that be Alonso's emoji, just rolling eyes?
When he scores triple digits, I'll be rolling my eyes. I promise.
That's it. First 100-point game week, single game week player.
God, can you imagine? So I am fearful of a couple of people, Bamford in particular. Calvert-Lewin could do well, and hopefully Antonio can do something because he's got some good stats and he's been doing well. But I am fearful of those other two. I'm quite happy having De Bruyne, seemingly as a sort of differential. I don't know how highly owned he is. 18.5% owned. That's pretty low, isn't it? In the grand scheme of things?
Also, the national team squads have done you a big favour. He's been
benched for Trossard. Yes,
not just benched, dropped for Trossard. I hasten to add. So De Bruyne having to be on the bench there Meanwhile, the likes of Gundogan, third start in 3, and he's captaining Germany for the last match. So that indicates De Bruyne might play.
Yeah, fingers crossed. He could get something at Leicester, but yeah, I'm glad I own Rafinha. I think if I was going to do my captaincy graphic and everything, because he's plotted against Sheffield United and he's got a better XGI than Bamford, he would come out as like the clear favourite this week for captaincy. But that's because he's playing Sheffield United, who really, really have conceded a lot. I don't think we should overthink captaincy this week. I think Kane is just a really, really logical shout. He 100% plays. And Newcastle really struggling at the moment as well.
Yeah. So. Last game week, Kane against Villa, it was a safe captaincy, but hand on heart, I don't think any of us who captained Kane thought he was going to get an absolutely massive haul, and so there were reasons not to captain him. But this time around, it's Newcastle, so he could get a massive haul.
He's Mr. Reliable this season, it seems. So why not? Why not captain Mr. Reliable?
Let's move on to your team, Chris. So for the benefit of those listening to the podcast, you're going for 3-5-2, Martinez in goal, Sufal, Target, Dallas, and then Gundogan, Fernandes, who's your captain, Lingard, Rafinha, Son, Bamford, and Kane. And then on your bench, you've got another strong bench, Stones, Cancelo, Watkins, and Forster against Burnley. So you don't have a bench boost left, do you? I mean, that's a good bench.
Sadly not. Yeah, no, it would have done better. It couldn't have been worse to do better than my own bench boost. I got 5 points. But yeah, this is very bus. It is almost certainty that I will switch to the armband to Kane. It's one of those things I tend to start with a different captain to one I end up on. I just love Fernandes. I can see him really hauling against Brighton. No offence again, but it's the sort of game.
No, he's always my default bus captain because I could just rely on him against anyone.
I'll make sure Kane comes through the Wednesday match fit before I kind of making decisions there. I think I agree with Ted. I think Kufal. I don't think Wolves are scoring a lot of goals this season. I think West Ham are in decent form. I might well bring one of the City players in instead of Target because I'm a bit wary about doubling up Villa against. Obviously at the moment they're just not quite where they were, so I probably would bring in one of those. But I am also looking at Chelsea. I am most likely going to bring Azpilicueta, who's one of my favourite fantasy players, in this week for one of those defenders. Well, I quite like next week. They've got a couple of good fixtures again. If I don't wildcard next week, I'd like 3 City again. But yeah, Gundogan, he can play. He can play all day. He's not, Kevin De Bruyne. He needs a rest sometimes.
You hope.
He just keeps them playing. Duracell Bunny. Yeah, obviously, if he's not playing, then the bench is strong. But I prefer. And again, Son might not play, so we don't know that. I mean, I'm presuming Bamford's going to. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with that. Like, I don't feel like I need to take a transfer, but because I'm thinking I would quite like some Chelsea. I would like a bit of that action there because I'm still kind of planning to wildcard next week, even though I might delay it. It feels stupid to kind of waste that transfer. But I could leave it as it is, to be honest, and maybe change the captain and be happy. I've got too many good players, which is it's like you're saying, Joe. It's having a strong bench can sometimes be a nightmare.
Although I've got to say, the game week after an international break, I've always had to use a sub. I've always had to go for a sub, sometimes 2, because there's when they get back, we don't know the full fitness sometimes. Managers becoming increasingly cagey about the fitness of players at times. For example, Jack Grealish, is he fit? Is he not? Will we actually know? And so we're going to get to, and there's going to be some,
check their fantasy picks.
Yeah, there's going to be some.
Check their fantasy league team picks.
There's going to be some surreal surprises. There'll be someone we haven't. So I'm thinking, Gundogan's going to get benched. John Stones. They're probably not going to be. They're going to play and get a hatful. And in fact, Harry Kane gets benched. I'm not saying that. But it'll be something. It'll be a big surprise. There's always a surprise, and it's an annoying one. I think you're absolutely right. The one thing I would say against that, which I think is that obviously barring injury, there haven't been long hauls. Like a lot of the time, the players I worry about, the South American players, and all those games kind of got sort of binned, this all called off, postponed this time. So
as we've Everton again, we've kind of got Mina and Rodriguez and Richarlison all going on these, and I always fear when they've had like a sort of a 8+ hour flight back, you're thinking, oh god, they're not going to.
Yeah, they've all commissioned some special private jet, haven't they? Usually, all the Brazilian players are coming back, and
and they just never look as sharp straight after that. But I think these have been quite short trips. Yeah, we'll see. I don't know. We'll see how Kane plays on Wednesday. Really, I imagine it's a bigger game, so I imagine it will.
I saw the Albania game, and I was really impressed. He was quite something. But it was the goal where he hit the bar. Well, it wasn't a goal. It was just missed to hit the bar, but it was just on this half volley, and it was so sharp though the way he did it. He just came from nowhere, and I just thought that's the Kane I want to captain. That's my man.
I think you're right. Yeah.
I think we'd all captain him against Albania, though, wouldn't we?
Yeah, yeah. We have Albania every week.
Albania are the the Eastern European Sheffield United, basically at the moment. Interesting. Weirdly, in Albania, this is just an Albania fact, that Norman Wisdom was one of their biggest stars when he was alive. The British film comedy actor Norman Wisdom. Grimsdale.
Ted has no idea who Norman Wisdom is.
Come on, give me some credit. I know who Norman Wisdom is.
I'm not going Arthur Askey on this, but Norman Wisdom, and he was a massive star. And he was
he's a young man. He doesn't know these old.
He had the keys to Tirana and all of that. It was very revered. Just
and
like
he dropped them.
George and Mildred, big in Cuba as well. But before we. But before we go, I want to remind people not about various 70s sitcom stars being big around the world, but I do want to remind people about the members area, which is where we got all those wonderful stats from. So there's tons of Opta-driven data there, comparison tool, rate my team, and more. And of course, the goals imminent table, which is the star of the members area. Do check that out. Also, please do press like if you like this episode. And remember to subscribe wherever you like to access the Scoutcast, on podcast or on video. But in the meantime, it's a goodbye from me.
Goodbye from me.
Hi from me.
Goodbye all.